So this is why I'm wearing my jacket. Yeah, Michelle is not feeling well, so let's pray for her because her goal is to come tonight, but she's just not feeling well. So yeah, so it's a little bit chilly, and I don't know. Pastor and I are always like, I'm cold, and he's like, it's not cold in here, So we go back and forth. So, all right. So to jump into our lesson, this lesson is entitled "Not My Circus, Not My Monkey." There was a lady who used to attend church here, and she used to say this. I'd be like, why is that there? Or do you know why this is here? Or, just something. And she'd be like, not my circus, not my monkey. So, and it just has always stuck with me. And for a while there, I used it and then kind of forgot about it. But if you've ever heard about this, this is the interpretation of not my circus, not my monkey. This situation does not belong to me, and I have no control over it. So I will stay out of it and not take ownership of it or be influenced by it. Not my circus, not my monkey, not my business. Okay, so this is something that's very much needed, because if we would learn to adapt this mentality on a lot of stuff, it would keep us out of trouble. Not my circus, not my monkey, I'll mind my own business. Sometimes in our lives and in our Christian walk, we may find ourselves in situations where we see out of our peripheral view. Now, remember, peripheral view is anything this way. And as we journey along our Christian walk, there may be times where we see stuff going on over here. But remember, we're on this road, on this journey, and the stuff in our peripheral view, it can hinder us. And that's what we need to keep in mind. Out of the corner of our eye, we may be like, oh, that's not good. That's not fair. That's unjust, And it could involve seeing other people do wrong while we're doing right. That's a pretty big thing, too. A lot of Christian ladies will struggle with that. It made me think the other day of kind of like how some people have so much, or it seems, in life as far as material things. Some people have so little in life, struggle for everything they get, and then some are in between, and there are people who get bitter over that. Usually it's not the people with so much that are getting bitter over it, but more sometimes the ones that either have very little or the ones in between. They feel like they're working so hard and yet they have nothing. But that's also a worldly view. And I'm not saying we don't fall prey to it sometimes, but we have to remember this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. So, but here's the issue. We must guard against viewing these circuses and monkeys this way. All the circuses and monkeys over here that really are not our business, and not allow them to influence our decisions that we make as we journey for Christ. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. And normally when we go to 1 Samuel chapter 1, we're talking about Hannah, and Hannah was the one who so deeply wanted a child, and she had the second wife over here. Pastor was really trying to get my goat this morning because I was talking over things, and he said something about Abigail and how she should have been grateful. She was, David scooped her up after, and I said, grateful to be brought into the king's harem doesn't sound like something I'd want. And he said, you women. And I'm like, so anyway, he's just trying to get me going this morning. But usually when we go to 1 Samuel chapter 1, we are talking about Hannah, but we're not today. And this little passage is just a little nugget. Chapter 1, verse 1. Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, the son of an Ephrathite. And the trick is to just seem like you know what they are. And he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And that's usually our focus. But look at verse number 3. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, the priest, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. So this is our launching pad for this. So here we're introduced to a man named Elkanah, who was faced with seeing a circus and monkeys in his peripheral view. So basically, Elkanah is on his journey for Christ, and he's going up. So let's go over the things that we do know. Point number 1, Elkanah went yearly to the city to worship and make sacrifices as commanded. This is what they were commanded to do, and Elkanah was faithful in doing this. Next bullet, something else we know. Elkanah knew that Hophni and Phinehas were wicked men. Okay? And the Lord, so Eli is the priest, and he's got 2 very, very wicked sons that are working in the temple and stuff. And the next bullet point goes along with this. Elkanah knew those 2 were doing wrong with the sacrifices being brought to the temple. So, everyone knew. And let's turn to 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 12 to 17. I'll show you how Elkanah knew that Hophni and Phinehas were doing wicked things, because everybody knew. Verse number 12 in chapter 2 says, Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. Okay. And they were in the temple. Okay. Eli the priest. We're talking the priest, the one who was the spiritual leader. It would be as if Brother Devin was living wickedly and doing wickedly here in the house of God, and Pastor did not do anything about it. That's what Eli was doing. It was so wrong. And they knew not the Lord. Verse 13, and the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servants came while the flesh was in seething, with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand. Verse 14, and he struck it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Verse 15, also before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, Give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. 16, and if any man said unto him, Let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, Nay, but thou shalt give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force. Verse 17, wherefore the sin of the young men, talk about Phinehas and Hophni. Wherefore the sin of those 2 young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord. So I don't know all the ins and outs, I try to picture everything in my mind, so I'm trying to picture this hook that has, and everything that they were doing. But to be honest, I don't have to understand all that. What I have to understand is that there's a right way to do things according to God, and there's a wrong way. And Hophni and Phinehas were doing things wickedly and wrongly when it came to the sacrifices and working in the temple. And what was Eli doing about it? Nothing. And so with the stars and the asterisks there, it says, verse 17 tells us that men came to abhor the offering of the Lord because of what Hophni and Phinehas were doing for the offerings. So many of them stopped offering. They stopped bringing their offerings. Like we talked about Elkanah, how, he was doing right. And that's just it, is that many stopped and became disobedient to God because they took ownership of the 2 monkeys that they saw over here in their circus, Hophni and Phinehas, but not Elkanah. Elkanah kept going. So back up to that first point, Elkanah went yearly. Then the second point, Elkanah knew that they were wicked men in doing that. And so there is a righteous indignation and anger. And I'm not saying that Elkanah didn't have a right to be upset over what they were doing. Absolutely he did. But he couldn't focus on that. That's just it. Everything over here that Hophni and Phinehas were doing in the temple, Elkanah had to still keep going. He had to keep looking forward and not focus on this. Because if he did, then he would have stopped coming to sacrifice like the others were. And that's not what God wanted. God wants us still to obey. That's why sometimes we have to just kind of mind our own business and let God take care of things. His job was not to take ownership of those monkeys that were doing wrong. Not saying that, he should have never said anything. You have to be careful. You have to be in much prayer when you do that. But he had to not allow it to stop him from serving God and doing what he knew to be right. And we're going to have these times in our life on our journey where we see circuses with monkeys off to our peripheral view. The important thing is not to sit here and do this, where we're looking out the sides of our eyes and looking in the wrong direction. We're on a journey, and we've got to keep our eye on the prize, which is Jesus. Jesus is the prize and what he wants for us. And when we, pay attention to everybody else's circuses and monkeys, then we get distracted. And just like those people stopped doing what was right, we will stop doing what is right too. Yeah. If we, focus on their circus and monkeys. So we have to say, well, not my circus, not my monkeys. Well, not my circus, not my monkeys. And just keep, and we have to pray that the Lord will help us with that, because it is very easy, especially when it seems like the circus and monkeys are like right here instead of way off there. The monkeys are right here, having a little circus act, and we're just trying to, oh, no, I can't. This is not mine to take hold of. This is back to that definition. This is not my situation that I see over here. Is not my situation. It does not belong to me. I have no control over it. I can't do anything about this. I have to keep moving forward for Christ. And that can be easy to say and hard to do, but it's crucial in our walk with God in order for us to keep moving forward. So, Elkanah, he kept moving forward. He did not take ownership of those circus and monkeys, and he did not let it influence whether he went to sacrifice yearly or not. He knew what was going on. He knew it, but he didn't take ownership of it. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. 1 Corinthians 15:58. And when someone gets there, if you want to read it.
Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord.
If you do not have this verse memorized, I would memorize it. I would print it out and put it where you see it all the time. Therefore, my beloved brethren, thank you, Tiff, be ye steadfast, unmovable, and always abounding, moving forward in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Because sometimes when you catch a glimpse of the circus and monkeys going on, it can make you be a little bit discontent, because you're like, well, why are they getting away with that? I'm trying to do right. They're over here doing that. Nothing bad seems to be happening. And that cannot be our thinking. Our labor for the Lord is not in vain. That's what that verse says. What did I do?
You have ASL.
I have what?
Instead of always.
You have ASL as always.
As always.
Oh,
As
yeah.
always. There you go.
That foolish computer changed that on me. There has to be one, ladies.
They're good though.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Sorry.
So we have to understand that we have to be steadfast, be unmovable, not letting our faith be shook by monkeys and circuses that don't belong to us. This situation does not belong to me. I have no control over it, so I will stay out of it and not take ownership or be influenced by it. In order for us to be unmovable, in order for us to be always abounding, moving forward in the work of the Lord, and understanding that that what I do for Christ is not in vain, I have to not take ownership of those circus and monkeys. I have to stay out of it. I have to mind my business. And sometimes it can even be where and I'm going to use ladies as an example because we are ladies and this is the ladies class, where couple ladies may be friends, and one lady has something going on in her life, and that's her circus, that's her monkeys, and all of a sudden another lady, one of us, gets that in our peripheral view, or it's brought into our peripheral view by the other lady that has the circus and monkeys, and then all of a sudden we're taking ownership of this circus and these monkeys. Yep. And it's impossible when we get in that position and we take ownership of her circus and her monkeys. It's impossible for us not to become influenced by it. And when we become influenced by it, we're not moving forward. We're not abounding in the work of Christ. We're not unmovable. All of a sudden, we can be moved off of our path that we're on, off our journey that we're on. Oh, I'm going to take ownership of your monkeys and your circus. I'm going to fight your cause. But you know what?
You left your own cause of Christ.
Exactly.
I was gonna say, I struggle with this a lot because maybe as a family member, right now it's a family member that is, I want to fix the problem. I want to be the mediator. I want to, listen, it was kind of pointed out to me by Pastor, you can't be the mediator because if you do that, then you're getting in between that, and then you may say something, you know me, I probably would say something dumb, and then it would be a whole thing, because that's the whole thing I struggle with. Like, I see somebody struggling with something, and you just want to help them, but honestly, sometimes you just want to listen, and then maybe pray for them, I would say, because that's the best result I've found.
Yep.
With me, anyways.
And sometimes, like if the situation involves another lady having a problem with somebody, take that lady's hand and take her to whoever it is and say, there you go. That's my part in it. Done.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you're right, Jen. It is just, it is our business to stay out of the business.
Yeah.
And we as ladies, we can justify 1,000 different ways of why we're taking ownership of someone's circus and monkeys.
And you might have the best intentions, but your intentions aren't God's intentions.
That's right.
So
And
like,
and
struggle with that.
when it takes us off of the prize is Jesus, when it takes us away from that, moves us off our journey, moves us from abounding, being unmovable, steadfast, and abounding, moving forward in the work of the Lord, that's a problem. That's a problem. We've gotten in someone else's business. We've taken ownership of it. But remember, I have no control over it. So I will stay out of it and not take ownership of it. When you take ownership or I take ownership of it, I still am not going to have any control over the situation, but somehow I've wiggled my nose into all this, and then I am influenced by it.
Yeah.
There's no taking ownership of someone else's monkeys and circus and not being influenced. That's the important thing we have to remember.
And you don't always know, like, the other side of the story. I'm not gonna say
So
who
true,
or what,
Jen.
but there was somebody that I know now that a person said something about them, and it changed my opinion of the person, and it kind of made me feel like a little bit of like hate and dislike. And finally, somebody pointed out to me, like, you can't do that because you don't know both sides.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, you're
And
right.
see how easy it was
Yeah,
to
it's
take
like
hold of that other lady's circus and monkeys and make them your own.
Yes.
I'm going to fight your cause, And really, we should have been like Elkanah, just moving forward, abounding in the work of the Lord. I know stuff's going on here, but it's not my circus and it's not my monkeys. But that's going to ring through your head because it does mine.
Now my husband's like, where do you get that?
So, Elkanah understood it wasn't his job to fix. It actually was Eli's job, part of his job, and he was failing. But it was not Elkanah's job to come and take care of all that. His job was to move forward and keep abounding in the work of Christ. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 25. 1 Samuel chapter 2, 25. Jen, you want to read that?
Just 1 second, I'm trying to make sure I'm in the right spot.
Okay.
I'm talking out loud to myself and it doesn't work well, so, give me a moment here, okay. I'm gonna throw my Mountain Dew at you. Fine, I'll just read this one. She's so funny. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearken not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them.
Okay,
Well-
God's going to take care of his business. Let's go to chapter 4 in that same book, 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 11. Okay, we don't have to worry. We don't have to take ownership of monkeys in business, especially if it's like something that's a problem. God takes care of business. He does. Who's got 4:11?
I do.
Okay, Donna?
And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, was slain.
They were slain. And back to that verse in verse 25 in chapter 2, the last part said, notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, okay, which meant Eli was saying something but did not have enough influence over his son, and he should have booted him anyway. So, but it says, notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. And then guess what he did? They were slain.
Yep.
Okay, let's look. We can look right on the paper here. Romans 12:19 in the blue says, "Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine; I will repay, saith the Lord." Enough said. Okay, we don't have to stick our nose in other people's business. We don't have to take ownership of something that we have no control over. We do not have to let other circuses and monkeys influence us. I got enough monkeys in my own circus, So, another great example, because this is what I was going over with Pastor and stuff, is I wanted an example of a Bible character, because like Elkanah, the Lord truly gave this to me back in February of 21, because it's just a little nugget. And I'd spent my whole Christian life really reading and focusing on Hannah. And there was this little nugget about Elkanah being faithful and abounding in his work for the Lord and just going on. And so I was like, okay, well, what are some other examples of that? And he gave me some, and they just weren't right. And then God showed me Nehemiah. Nehemiah is the perfect example of not borrowing someone else's monkey and circus and monkeys, because there is a work to be done to abound for the Lord.
True.
So he was not distracted. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 2. The story of Nehemiah is amazing.
Lord, she did that to me.
What's that?
She was
She didn't hear you.
That's good.
She was snoring.
I was snoring.
Oh, whatever, Jen. All right, Nehemiah chapter 2. It's okay, Jen. Verses 19 to 20. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn. And who is this? This is Nehemiah. Nehemiah, their city laid in waste, and he wanted to go back and fix it. So God gives him favor with the king. The king says, go fix the city and the walls. And then these three birds come out, and they laughed us to scorn and despised us, and said, what is this thing that ye do? Will ye rebel against the king? So Nehemiah, he's got a work to be done. And he's gathered people to do it, and then here they come, and they start giving him a hard time. And then let's go to chapter 4, And they're very persistent too. We did a lesson a little while back. I can't remember what the title was, but it was about this. They were persistent little guys.
How about 20?
Yes.
I forgot 20. Oh, yes. Back in chapter 2, verse 20, it says, Then answered I them and said unto them, oh yeah, this was so important part of it. The God of heaven, he will prosper us. This is Nehemiah talking. Therefore we his servants will arise and build. But ye have no portion, no right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. He's saying that about Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. He said, the God of heaven, he will prosper us. He'll take care of things. Move forward. Abound in the work of Christ, not paying attention to this little circus with monkeys of Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. Now in chapter 4, verses 7 and 9, I'll read that. It says, But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth and conspired all of them together to come and fight against Jerusalem and hinder it. I love this word here, verse number 9. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God and set a watch against them day and night because of them. Nevertheless, who cares about the circus and monkey going on over here? Yakety yak, yak, yak. You know, you guys can say and do all you want. And they did. And then verse 15, go down to verse 15, and it says, And it came to pass when our enemies heard it, that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, everyone to his work. Keep abounding in that work of the Lord. And then chapter 6, verses 1 to 4 says, Now it came to pass when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, the Arabian, they're a pain, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates. Verse 2, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me mischief. Verse number 3, and I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, abounding, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you, circus and monkeys? Verse 4, Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. Monkeys,
Very persistent.
yeah, they were. And then they wrote letters trying to trick them. I mean, they were something. And then let's go to verse 15. So the circus and monkeys is going on. Nehemiah is abounding in the work and getting everything done. Verse 15, so the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. The work was done. It didn't matter what they were doing. And like Donna said, they were persistent. And they still keep going. But you know what? Nehemiah didn't have to worry about that. What Nehemiah had to worry about was doing what God had commissioned or given him to do. Same with us. We do not have to worry about what another Christian is doing or really what's going on in their life. Now, I'm not saying we don't care about one another. Especially, we have a very close-knit church. Our ladies are close. I love that. But we have to be careful about not boring circus monkeys because it will affect us. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Love you, praying for you. But be careful of how much we get involved with that stuff. And then just understand that we have a work to be done. And so even when the circus monkeys are close to our home, they're right here in our peripheral vision. And it would be so easy to let that affect us just by peeking out of the corner. Don't even peek. Don't even peek. Because, even as you're looking, you can still see stuff, but don't turn to look at it. It's going to derail you. So we need to keep going. Nehemiah did not get distracted. He got the work done. And you know what? Romans 12:19. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine. Yeah, that verse, I'm just rereading that verse. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. We don't have to take care of things, and Nehemiah knew that. And he knew that in order, and I loved his answer in 6:3. I'm doing a great work so that I cannot come down. It was a total farce anyway that they were saying. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? Why should God's work cease? Which is, if we're abounding, if we're being steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, and we're moving forward, why should God's work cease while we pay attention to circuses and monkeys? That is Satan. And Satan will put that stuff right beside our, right here, so that we pay attention to it. And we have got to say the same thing Nehemiah did. I'm doing a great work. When we are moving forward for Christ and we're obeying him and we're doing what he wants, that's a great work for Christ. That's obeying him. And why should we leave that for circus monkeys that I have no control over? Because it's not my business.
I like the phrase, keep your eyes on the prize. and
Yes.
that's Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and that prize is Jesus. And, and in order to keep abounding, keep your eye on the prize. Keep them off the circus and the monkeys and keep your eye on the prize. And when we do that, we will be steadfast, we will be unmovable, and we will abound. We will move forward for Christ. So in the blue, I put your blinders on, do right, and leave the circus monkeys alone, and let God take care of things. Our job is just to obey. Our job is not to fix everyone's problems, like Jen said. We as ladies can be pretty creative in how we twist things to make it seem like it's my duty as another Christian lady. Told you about how years and years ago when I was a young Christian, got caught up in the prayer request thing. It was just gossip. It was gossip.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
Yeah. I want you to pray about this. And as I tell something, that's wrong. That's wrong, and we shouldn't do it. And we just need to make sure that we let God take care of things. Our job is just to obey. And in doing that, we will move forward for Christ. We have a great work to do, just like Nehemiah did, and we will get that work done if we're not derailed by circus and circus monkeys. So, say it with me. Not my circus, not my monkey. All right, we're going to say goodbye to our online friends.